Hey guys, welcome back to the Critical Review. Today I'm going to be doing my spoiler review of Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is the second week in the box office that it's been absolutely crushing, so I figured now is probably a good time to get into it. This is definitely not going to be a play-by-play, so if that's what you're looking for, I'm sorry. And the reason being is, one, I don't typically like to do spoiler reviews like that, and two, there is so much going on in this movie. One, there's no way I'd be able to cover it all, and two, it would just be a rehash, and I don't think that'd be very entertaining in the first place. First off, I'm going to start off with a positive note, things I did like. Now, in this Spider-Man, there's a slight montage in the beginning showing him fighting a bunch of bad guys. He's been doing it for a while, shows his apartment and making his own tech. Kind of shows you where Peter's been for a couple years, and I think they did a really good job of sequencing that, and the pacing was pretty good. One of the subplots is that Peter's arachnid DNA is raising pretty much from the stress that he's been under, so he tries to combat that with creating an inhibitor that he goes and talks to Bruce Banner about. Before I move on, we get old school Bruce Banner with just an inhibitor on him. If he takes it off, he becomes the Hulk. This is my preferred Hulk, that weird like half Bruce Banner, half Hulk thing that they had going on. I think that was kind of lame because he really didn't have the explosive anger of the Hulk and like the rage and the strength. And he was just kind of like a mild dude that was really muscular. I thought that was stupid. So I'm glad that they went back to like the original like Bruce Banner Hulk dynamic. The other cool thing about this movie is everything has a meaning in it. That inhibitor that he creates to kind of suppress his arachnid DNA plays a pivotal role later on in the movie because he uses it to eliminate Jean Grey's powers. Obviously, as I just mentioned, Jean Grey was revealed as the villain in this movie, and I thought that was extremely smart on Marvel's part. I did not see that coming at all. Jean Grey's not really a villain unless you like consider the Dark Phoenix one. So it was really interesting to see that hero stepping into that villain role, and then her motivations behind what she was doing was revealed to be her sister. So it actually worked and it made sense. It didn't feel forced. Touching on Jean Grey's character, I am spouting out a lot of positives. There are some weird things about it that I didn't really understand about her personality and her decision making. Jean Grey is going after her sister because she was abducted by this agency for her psychic abilities. That makes sense, right? Now, she wants to go get her back. She has her own powers, so she's probably like the person for the job. But it doesn't really explain like why she's such a dick in this movie. Like, she does a lot of unnecessary stuff. Like, there's at one point she finds out Spider-Man's true identity, finds MJ's letter, and Spider-Man has to rush over to save MJ, get her out of there, right? Keep her safe. So he eventually does. There's this touching rooftop moment where she says, "Oh, I think I remember you," and like that I thought was going to be the big reveal, right? And had mixed feelings about it at the time. I was like, that's kind of lame. Like, the power of love gets through Doctor Strange's spell or whatever. And it really ended up being just Jean Grey masquerading in MJ's subconscious, which threw a curveball at me yet again. And I just thought that was just great writing because there was just so many twists and turns in this movie that I didn't see coming. It was not predictable at all. Now, expanding off of that, whenever they're on the rooftop and circling back to why I think Jean Grey's kind of a jerk in this, she kind of messes with Peter's emotions like a lot for like no reason. There's really no motivation. Like, Peter didn't abduct her sister. Like, I don't understand why she was doing that, other than like maybe she's a terrible person. And then she walks MJ off of a roof. And also in an earlier scene, there's like Peter's like chasing the subconscious, and then he ends up being confronted on the street by somebody who's like, I'm just gonna use the word possessed by Jean Grey, and she walks the guy in front of a car. This is just like an old construction worker. Like, the dude's probably working a 9 to 5 and has 2 grandkids. Meanwhile, she just walks the guy into oncoming traffic and jumps consciousness out of him right before he's smacked by a car. I just felt like that kind of stuff was a little bit out of character. Yeah, I really got the villain feeling from it, but like the way that they reconcile Jean Grey later in the film, it's almost negated by like some of the terrible stuff that she had already done. Now, towards the third act of the movie, there's a big battle scene. It has the Hulk, has Punisher in it. Punisher feels like the Punisher. He comes in like machine gun blazing, and he's peppering the Hulk. And it really feels like that character, being the Punisher, wasn't watered down. He still had like his grumpy attitude and stuff. And he actually played a role in this movie that had some substance. He wasn't just thrown in there. But the actual fight scenes, the camera angles, the way that the CGI was, very well put together. Like I said in my prior review, definitely the best looking Spider-Man that we've ever had. Speaking of the visuals, I'll also say that I strongly prefer Spider-Man's costume in this to like the Tony Stark like nanotech that he had in the last one. It looked like kind of fake to me on screen, like a lot of it was digitalized. In this, it feels more real, like there's more substance to it. So I also think that they did a good job with that. This movie has a lot of heart, and one thing that I'll mention is towards the end, the way that Jean Grey is swayed is she dives into Peter's mind and she speaks with Aunt May. Now, long fans of this series is going to know that Aunt May died, and it's really cool to see her return in this way where it doesn't cheapen her death, but it actually adds more weight to it. And Aunt May actually plays kind of a big part in the success of like Spider-Man's mission in this. It's like Jean Grey has nobody in the world, but going into Peter's mind, Aunt May is sitting there with her on Peter's bed talking to her. And she's making a lot of sense to her, and she's telling her that just because things are a certain way doesn't mean that you have to let them change you. And people are going to do horrible things because you have gifts, and don't allow that to make you into a monster, essentially. This really puts things into perspective for Jean, and she's not beaten by force, but she's beaten just by somebody taking the time to talk to her, even if that is Spider-Man's dead aunt. I'm just saying that it was a really cool moment. This movie, like, a lot of emotion was put into this, and it was very, very well thought out. Now, after she has this revelation, the Punisher's on the other side of the river with a sniper rifle and takes a shot at her. Peter, Spidey sense goes off, grabs Jean Grey, spins into the bullet. I'll be honest, I thought like he might die in that moment. Like the way it was played out, the way that he fell to the ground, there was never a moment in this movie where like they felt like they were playing it safe. I really thought that like, well, maybe this is the last Spider-Man that Tom Holland is in. That's whenever our newly reformed Jean Grey saves him with her powers, essentially keeping him alive after the Punisher gets him to the hospital. I thought that was actually pretty clever because it helped explain some things. Like you would be like, oh yeah, he's just gonna survive because. But they actually put like some thought behind it and gave you an explanation. And that was the other thing in this movie is most things had an explanation. They weren't just like, you weren't sitting there wondering, well, how did that happen? That doesn't make any sense. Everything is pretty well explained. One thing I didn't talk about was the big reveal of Peter's identity to MJ. Now, she's at the Punisher's hideout, and she finds his note, which, in my opinion, is the perfect way for her to find out. Because Peter kind of poured his heart out in that letter, and she's able to read it and kind of, like, process it before she speaks with him. And the other part of this that was really nice, I thought, was they didn't just have MJ fly into Peter's arms. It was kind of a realistic take where she's like, you know, you were in love with this girl, but I'm not this girl in this letter. Like, I don't know you. I don't love you. So it's kind of like Peter starting over from square one. So it was a realistic take on that, but it was kind of cool to see that they didn't just water that down and just make it like hit a reset button. Like the prior movie had no bearing on the outcome of this. Like there were ramifications behind Peter's decisions. Since I'm talking about the whole friendship dynamic of this, there is a scene where they're like building Legos and they're hanging out. Ned doesn't know that who Spider-Man is. And it just kind of took us back to prior movies, and that was like a little snippet of nostalgia. That was really nice that they put it in, so that it made you root for the big reveal and for everything to kind of come together with Ned maybe later on, because at that point MJ knew. But it also saw that she wasn't so freaked out that she couldn't hang out with Peter, so it also gives you hope. Now after Peter makes his recovery from the hospital, he leaves, and eventually he runs into Ned at the coffee shop. I really like Ned's character because he's relatable. He brings a lot of comedy, you know, like comic relief to it. And they walk up and he does like the handshake and Ned just kind of does it like no problem, like never misses a beat. And he says, I'm Peter. Now, back whenever they were hanging out building Legos, Spider-Man had to leave and MJ looks and says, you know, be careful, Peter, something to that effect. And Ned was like, Spider-Man's name is Peter? So he kind of puts that together at the end. Although we're left on a little bit of a cliffhanger of whether Ned actually remembers him, like as, you know, Peter Spider-Man, we had this friendship, or he's just like, oh shit, this is Spider-Man. Like this is who MJ was talking about. So it could go either way, but either way, it kind of gives the viewer some hope and gives us something to talk about. At the end of the day, just like in my last review, I strongly recommend you go see this movie. There's a reason that it's at the top of the box office. The writers did an awesome job on this. This was very well thought out because this was an extremely complex movie to make. It had to be. There was so much going on. But that being said, just because there was a lot going on, the way that they paced the movie, it was easily digestible and you understood everything. So overall, Spider-Man Brand New Day, huge win. I can't wait to see more Spider-Man movies in the future. One thing I am going to say before I go is who I would love to see in a Spider-Man movie is Deadpool. Like, Deadpool's dynamic and like Peter's innocence would go so well together. Marvel, why are you not making this movie? Give us Spider-Man and Deadpool. That would be awesome. Alright guys, that concludes my review. If you got a second, if you could tap that like button, I really appreciate it. This channel is really new and I'd like to keep making these videos. And until next time, this has been The Critical Review.